Back in the 90s, when the world was just a little based on the regular, life was good, and there was a little thing called the WWF. Except there was one thing wrong. It was the 90s. Nobody likes the 90s. At least it wasn't the god-awful 80s. Now you may be thinking, what's so based about the World Wildlife Foundation? Well, they forced the World Wrestling Federation to change their name at a certain point. Why? I don't know. But that wasn't even in the 90s. You know what was in the 90s though? A little thing called Radio WWF, which is a quote-unquote partially found piece of lost media. Now, weird thing about me, I'm a big fan of pro wrestling. I like it. I've been a fan of it since I was like 6, and it was like my identity as a fucking teenager, sadly. And I wanted to be a pro wrestler. And then, like a fucking Chad, I gave up my dream, right? Because I make stupid decisions. But at least I'm not an idiot and think that wrestling is fake. Or that the earth is round. Radio WWF was a radio show that was promoted by Mr. Allegations, Vince McMahon himself, around September 1993. The radio show would allow fans to interact and ask uncensored questions to wrestlers, kinda like this.
And also, what about the trans porn on your phone, Alex? Or you were going to talk about that?
Say that again?
Trans porn on your phone? That's all they keep talking about. And
I saw a couple news articles about that. It's ridiculous. I was like looking up some reporter we're trying to hire today and punched in some number and it popped up porn on my phone. Everybody's had porn pop up on their phones.
Radio WWF was hosted by legendary wrestling commentator Jim Ross, and it offered a bit more than your standard WWF broadcast, such as alternate commentary for pay-per-view events and discussing current events inside the WWF and inside the wrestling industry overall. So Radio WWF seems to date back all the way to SummerSlam of 1993, and here, commentators Jim Ross and Gorilla Monsoon had provided alternate commentary for the pay-per-view, with Radio WWF being promoted during the television broadcast. Towards the end of September, wrestler Raven took over as co-host from Monsoon. Another known time the alternate commentary was done was during the Survivor Series pay-per-view later that year, but Ross and Monsoon switched over to the television broadcast, with Mr. Hush Money and Bobby Heenan taking over halfway through the event. It's also believed that Radio WWF lasted long enough to cover the Royal Rumble and WrestleMania 10 in 1994, making the show's possible longevity of 7 to 8 months. But this is probably the best part about this whole entire thing, and my favorite part. Apparently, on an October edition of Radio WWF, the cream of the crop, the man who potentially fucked Stephanie McMahon before I could, the Macho Man Randy Savage, talked so much shit about our brother, Hulk Hogan. Co-host Raven had apparently hyped up the interview, saying, quote-unquote, Savage is going to make waves. Homie is going to make some moves on us, essentially. Leading to some believing that Ross and Raven knew about this whole entire thing in advance. Savage had apparently said shit about Hogan's personal life, steroid use, acting career, and accused them of being the reason that the Macho Man and Miss Elizabeth divorced, because Hogan apparently flirted with her. Basically, Hulk Hogan pulled up and asked her, "Hey mama, what's your kick?" Pretty fucking based and red-pilled, brother. There's actually been some discussion on whether this was either a shoot or a work, and those are wrestling terms, so let me just run them down real quick. Shoot equals unscripted, basically, and work equals scripted to look real. Somewhere during his lifetime, Jim Ross was replaced by Mr. I'll pay you not to talk about it, with fans' questions being approved ahead of time. The show was cancelled mostly because it was unable to get enough stations to carry it, so it just wouldn't get picked up as much as they liked. Then the show was then revived in the late 90s, and it was an Armed Forces Network show, letting those in the military keep up with everything inside the WWF at the time, and it lasted until at the very least of SummerSlam 2000 with commentators Michael Cole and Mick Foley, and then it got cancelled again, but quietly this time. I think about how Mick Foley, Dude Love, Mankind, and Cactus Jack all look the same. No, it can't be the same person. Radio WWF's inability to be carried by many stations led to its recordings being hard to find, and it said that the Macho Man interview, like the transcript of it, can be found on an archived misselizabeth.com page. And according to the Lost Media Wiki, on January of this year, right, January 2022, leaks from Radio WWF started appearing on YouTube. There were recordings of the commentary of both the 1998 and 1994 Royal Rumble events, which featured Jim Ross and Gorilla Monsoon's commentary. Also, Bruce Pritchard, a controversial figure within the wrestling industry, has also talked about the Macho Man interview.
For Savage to go for the run, and he does to the outside. Unbelievable.
Is sold out, and this is the 1994 edition of the WWF Royal Rumble. I'm Jim Ross, everyone, alongside Gorilla Monsoon. And Gorilla, this is the 6th Royal Rumble on pay-per-view for the WWF, and by all accounts, it's going to be the greatest of all time.
It is hot indeed. It is electric here in the Providence Civic Center.
So that's why it's called Partially Found, because we can see some of it, or at least hear some of it, essentially. I feel like now, since the whole ordeal of podcast coming into play, that fucking shooting up out of nowhere, I feel like this is something that you could bring back fucking easily, especially with the whole alternate commentary thing, because, you know, within the wrestling community, especially WWE, people don't like the commentary, and it's very easy to see why. It's not to say that it's shit, but it's very corporate. I fully believe some sort of version or variation of Radio WWF should come back, or at least can come back. But it's up to them if they want to do that, you know. There it is. I've wanted to do something on Lost Media for such a long time, but just not everything of Lost Media interests me. So I wanted to grab something that actually grabbed my attention. And then now I have two of my hobbies essentially just kind of... So that was fun. Nowadays, I don't watch wrestling as much anymore. It was mainly just something I did to watch with my friends. Now I don't have friends. Oh, look at that. It's not my fucking fault, I'll tell you that much. But anyways, this was fun for me. There hasn't been some topic that I found that just kind of grabbed me like this. I mean, this is really tiny, but it's just, I love it. It was so good. It was so fun to just look at. And, you know, don't get me wrong, I like every single topic that I talk about, but it's been a while since one just kind of grabbed, like, just me, like, in general. And, like, in such a way that brings out a different kind of passion? I don't think that's the word, but some sort of kick in me, you know? There it is. Thank you so much for watching, and, bye.